Hello? 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 Hello?
Hello?
Well, there's people there. That's good.
Hi, Chris. It's Natalie.
Natalie, how you doing tonight?
Good. So you'll just pardon me. My daughter's still not sleeping, so if you hear some noise, it's probably her trying to get my attention. So I apologize.
Well, we have the same issue here. We have the dog with the squeak toy trying to get my attention. So.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to make you presenter right away, so then you can share your desktop or whatever you call it. Yeah, share the desktop whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Wait. There we go.
Okay, so I just got to reduce this so I can see what I'm doing. Excellent.
Oui, les chiens, c'est bien. C'est bien. Oui, ils sont partis. Oui, les chiens sont partis. Hello?
Hello?
So there's somebody named Marty?
Yes.
Hi.
Hello?
Just checking to
Hello.
make sure you can be heard.
Good. Well, do we want to wait for if there's any more else coming online, or should we get started?
Oh yeah, no, we'll have to wait till probably about 5 after just to make sure, because people might be having trouble with just this is new technology for a lot of people, so we just have to give them some time to kind of get figured out and oriented on how to get logged on.
Excellent.
I've had I think the first rules interpretation session we had. Yes, sir. Somebody logged on 20 minutes in because they couldn't figure out how to log on.
Okay. Kind of like the process we went through yesterday.
What's that?
Like the process we went through yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. So I expect some people might take a few minutes before they can log on. And I've had a few more requests for people who can't make.
Well, we've had a nice cold day in Calgary today. It's about 10 below and lots of snow around, so winter's here.
This line is now unmuted.
All right, so it's 5 after, so I think we should get started.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Chris?
I'm ready to go whenever you are.
Okay, so let's get started. So for those of you who are joining us, welcome to our second session of a webinar this year, and this one is on the planning your ringette season. So it's basically how to build a yearly training or seasonal training plan. Chris Beelan has a lot of experience with this. He's a learning facilitator out in Alberta, and he's also been coaching for many years, and also was the head coach for the 2009 U19 West team. So he's quite experienced, and he'll be able to answer a lot of your questions. So once he's built this session, so he'll be able to do information basically for about 30 minutes or so, and then you'll have a lot of opportunity to ask questions. So, but at any time, if you do have a question, there's a couple of options. You can just speak up, and the other option is in the web attendee area, you all have a red flag that you can put next to your name, and that'll indicate to Chris that you have a question. So feel free after that to ask your question. Again, this is really for your benefit, so Chris is more than willing to answer questions and go into details at any time if there's anything that you need to have clarified, so feel free to do that. So I'm going to leave it to Chris to run the session. This session is being recorded, so if anyone afterwards is interested in listening to it, I will be posting it on the coaching website of Ringette Canada after, probably in the next couple of days. So go ahead, Chris, and anybody, I hope you enjoy it, and hope you learned something from it.
Okay, thanks very much, Natalie. Well, welcome all to this webinar on planning your ringette season. I've sort of set it up in terms of we're going to spend a little bit of time tonight in terms of what our objectives are. It is basically the webinar is set up to help you prepare your seasonal plan, and this is sort of like an accounting issue in that it's maybe not the most exciting thing, but it's also the most productive and rewarding in terms of putting your time into developing a seasonal plan or making a map of what you're going to do for the season. As Natalie mentioned, we're going to spend the first 30 minutes sort of reviewing the logistics of planning your season and discussing appropriate emphasis at different times, and then this will be followed by a question and answer period. So the things that we want to consider when we're doing a seasonal plan are the demographics of your group in terms of the plan you set up for a group of U12s versus U16 or U19 or U10s will be totally different in terms of if you have younger age groups, you're definitely spending a lot more time on basic skills, or as I call it, the skate, shoot, pass, score group in terms of basic skills and skill development is a focus of your plan. Versus as your demographics of your team gets older, then you're spending more time developing tactics and strategies and rounding out their training. So the demographics of the group really dictate a lot of how the plan is implemented. The process of developing it is going to be the same. The length of your season is going to affect your seasonal plan, and that's something that we're going to use in terms of to map out. We go to the end of the season and work backwards. I know in Alberta and the West, we have a lot of rural associations where their season is not near as long as some of the urban areas, so you'll see quite a bit of difference. When you're doing your seasonal plan, it's always important to decide which events are important relative to the competitive aspect of your team. And for a lot of us, that kind of boils down to city playoffs, provincials, those sorts of things. A lot of our tournaments along the way definitely should be used and appropriately used as training sessions as well to develop your team. The number of training opportunities you have will really dictate how you implement your seasonal plan, and that if you have only one practice every week and a half, and that's shared ice, the opportunities you have to develop are restricted relative to a team that has more ice and, say, more dryland opportunities. So assessing the number of opportunities you have over the course of the season will help you sort of be realistic in terms of the outcomes of your seasonal plan. And the last thing is basically developing age, position, and by position in terms of position that the players play, either goaltender, skater, defense, forward, center, and phase-specific physical, skill, tactical, and mental development in terms of thinking of the things very specifically relative to the age, the position the players play, the phase of the season, and whether it's a physical skill, a tactical skill, or mental development. So where do we start? It's always important if we start. Let's go to the destination and let's work backwards. And this, along with planning your season, planning your goal setting, planning your physical development for your team, if you sort of go to the back and back up through the season, often it gives you a much better perspective in terms of what you're doing. So we need to have a map. If we're going to go in and develop our season, let's have the map. So you can use these sort of generic maps or generic seasonal event planners. This one was just taken from the CI2 course. If you've been a participant in the CI2 course, you will have filled this out during the course of the season. Or you can have specific ones, relative like this one, which is just sort of an imprint copy of one that we're going to look at here very shortly. So now, if there are people on the line, can you give me an idea in terms of if you have, are we dealing with a group that represents more younger teams, or are we, because the seminar is sort of set up for the sort of the U12, 14, 16, 19 levels in terms of it'll emphasize what's happening with their team, especially sort of U14, U16, U19. Okay, so let's get out of this. And we'll go into our seasonal planning instrument. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up the seasonal planning instrument. Now what I've done with, I've created a seasonal planning instrument, and this part right now is grayed out for a reason. This is not our area of focus. At the start, don't worry about the legend. This will become apparent as we develop into the third pages. But for now, let's just look at two things in terms of the events we want to do and the categories that we want to monitor. So if you've noticed on the top here, I've set out the year relative to the months of the year from September 2011 through till April 2012. So I've basically mapped out the year. In the second row, I've identified the weeks of that season, and the numbers here represent the Mondays of that month. So, for example, in September, we have the 5th, the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th are all months of the year. Same with October, same with November, and through the year. So what that's doing is defining our season into weeks. The other logistical thing we've got here, we've set down the things that we want to keep track of. So in other words, relative to competition, number of championships we have, tournaments, games, and practices. Relative to training, we're going to look at different individual and skill tactics in terms of skating, ring skills, checking, shooting, channeling man on, tactical skills, special situations, mental preparation in terms of these areas, physical preparation, whether it's aerobic or anaerobic, and then others in terms of other events that we may have. So page one, or the first step in getting started, is basically just creating this chart of events and categories in terms of here's our events on the horizontal axis, and on the vertical axis is our categories. Okay, so now that we've sort of mapped that out, let's go and post in or put in our opportunities. So what you can see I've done here for championships, for most of us, championships usually indicate a trip to the provincials. That's or maybe in your case, if it's an urban area, the city finals leading to provincials. So I put those in, and I put them in the approximate week that they may occur. Next row, I've mapped in the tournaments that my team would go to, and I've also in brackets put the number of games that I expect them to play at that tournament based on previous experience, or just based on what's usually happened with that tournament. So if we go to Saskatoon, the first play 4 games, and so on. Regina, the Calgary tournament, and if we go to one in Ontario, and I've totaled that over here. In terms of over here, I've got the total number of games that we'd expect in tournament play. The next row identifies our league games that we would play. We usually play about a league game a week, and sometimes we may have an extra exhibition game. these are approximations based on previous years, or knowing if you're in a square with that you get 20 league games over the course of the season, using those approximate numbers. But same thing, we've mapped them out, and they're approximate position in the season to give us a total. Next, we map in now the number of practices. And I've started this the first week that I have exposure to the players or opportunity to meet with the players. And in my experience, usually this is around the time of tryouts or shortly after tryouts when we have opportunity to meet the players. So line right here represents the number of practice opportunities. And that gives us a total here of times that we would meet on the ice in terms of games, tournament, league games, and practices. So this group will probably be on the ice together over the course of the season close to 80 times. That may vary in terms of when you get your exact ice allocation, but what I've done is I've given myself an approximate number. Okay, so this is step 2. Now we're going to move on to step 3, which now means that now we're going to spend specific time defining the training objectives and how much time or emphasis are we going to put on those training objectives. So now this is page 3, and now this is the whole seasonal plan put together. And I've divided it into individual training skills and tactics. Instead of defining these as objectives like maximum power, speed, endurance, those sorts of things, I've basically kept this very practical in terms of the things that we deal with teams every day. So in other words, skating, ring skills, checking, shooting, channeling, man-on. The basic skills that are required to be developed. Now if we look across each row, as it corresponds to each week, I'm showing what I start early in the season and also other skills and stuff that I start later on in the season. The color of the line indicates that this is either a physical ability that's in acquisition, or it's a acquisition of a skill or tactic, or development of a basic motor or physical skill. So as you can see with basic skills, we're going to emphasize them a lot because it's a blue color, and also the thickness of the band is very wide. A wide band indicates it's a high emphasis, middle band is moderate, and a small band is low. So as you can see, early in the year, often a number of the skills and stuff we're introducing are developmental, and we're going to spend a fair bit of time on basic skills in terms of skating and especially ring skills. It's so important that we develop these first and basically get players that can skate and can execute ring handling, because then the things we want to teach later in the year work so much better. So as you can see, for the individual skills and tactics, we start with a large volume. As the season goes on, we drop down the amount of emphasis, so you can see the line gets more narrow, and we change the training objectives from acquisition to the green area, which is usually maintenance, and for skills and tactics it becomes pink, which means we start to refine them in terms of the skills and the tactics. Okay. Now, 2 other things I've put in here is I put this yellow bar that's vertical, which is usually a tapering week, and I find that as you get within about a month of the end of your season, it's really important that you give your team a bit of a break and you taper back in terms of find a time when you can kind of back off and give them a bit of a breather. They recharge both physically and mentally. I often will, this may be a bit of a moving target, and I base it based on what, say, ice opportunities are, or just my feel for the team in terms of I feel that they've maybe gone a little bit too hard and they need a bit of a break. The other purple bar here indicates what your Christmas season. Often you're off the ice for about a week in that part of the year, which is coming up pretty soon. So now that we've looked at the individual tactics, skills and tactics, let's look at team skills and tactics. Early in the year, we've spent lots of time on our ring skills and our skating skills. Now things like breakout, offensive system, team defense, triangle play, and special situations. Well, you can see that really a lot of these areas, we're just introducing them as needed just to get the season started. We're basically putting the emphasis is low on those. We'll start to develop them, and as the season progresses, We now start to spend more emphasis on them and also start to refine them. So, for example, in a breakout, early in the year, we may be spending time just teaching the basic concepts of a breakout in terms of how to get out of the defensive zone, how to look for the ring in the neutral zone, and how to attack the offensive zone, and that may be it. In this part of the season, we're starting to introduce different set breakouts that follow the same principles that we've established early in the season. At the end of the season, now we're starting to use a multitude of breakouts and teaching the players how to make decisions relative to them in terms of which one would be appropriate to use in which situation. Same principles apply for your offensive system, team defense, and triangle play in terms of if we do not have good ring handling skills, and what I mean by good ring handling skills is being able to handle and execute ring stabbing 95% of the time relative to your age and division, these offensive systems will not work. As we start, we'll start off with basic offensive principles. We'll introduce things in this part of the season in terms of things like picks and screens and other offensive tools, and then we'll start to refine them relative to the skill set of the players and in terms of setting them into some plays, but mostly in terms of reinforcing the concepts we established early. Same concepts with team defense and triangle play. Special situations, we don't introduce those until later, and definitely that's a big focus in the last, say, month to 6 weeks before we go to provincials, is spending time on special situations in terms of 5-on-3, offensively, defensively. Power play situations, 5-on-4. You need possession late in the game. How do you get it? Those sorts of things. So that's what we're going to do both with individual skills and tactics and team skills and tactics. Let's talk a little bit about some of the components of the season. Mental preparation. Creating a positive environment. That's something you got to start from day one and you finish on at the very end. It stays the same. Creating a positive environment that's fun for players is so important to helping them learn. Things like self-awareness, we may introduce that at this part of the year, later on in the season. One of the mental preparation skills I use very early is goal setting, and I will often start goal setting within about a month of when the team has been formed, once the dynamics of the team is starting to establish, and we will set goals for the season, and then we will revisit those goals both as a team and individually at each of our tournaments. As you can see, these red blocks correspond with corresponding competitive events. We also tend to want to evaluate going on as we've had a tournament. As we make the goals for the next one, we want to evaluate how we did in the previous tournament. So that's why I have these evaluation blocks indicated here going through the season. The other thing of note on here in terms of your physical preparation is early in the year, you're developing aerobic base and aerobic skills. As the season progresses after the first 10 weeks, that aerobic base should be there, and now it becomes a maintenance mode. And definitely, if you do not have the aerobic base at this part of the year already, trying to develop it that late in the year will be ineffective. We change over to anaerobic conditioning as the season progresses, so we introduce it a little bit sort of into the middle half of the season and spend more time developing it up until the end of the season. The last bit here is also another benchmark in terms of looking at how many other times are we going to be together as a team. Social events in terms of, do you have a sleepover early in the season once your team is formed? Do you have other sort of social events in terms of maybe a party for the players or a Christmas party? Those things are all indicated. Are you doing fundraising? You may have 2 or 3 fundraisers for through the season, either bottle drives or whatever. Are you setting up a power skating program, and have you indicated that? Are you doing something like accelerated skating? If you map all this stuff in, are you doing a dryland? Do you do a spin class or a yoga class? Indicate all these things, and then you total, and now you will get a number indicating how many times that you are going to be together for the season. So this is your map for the season, and now let's move on a little bit, and we're going to talk about sort of the practical aspects of this in terms of what these drills for different skills look like early, middle, and late season. Okay, so let's look at some drills that we would do sort of early in the season. So what I have here is I'm going to show the schematic. I'm also going to show a corresponding film clip or video clip of what those drills look like on the ice. So let's look at early in the season, the conditioning drill. Now this is the schematic here seems quite busy, but really what it boils down to is there's 6 lines of players. These 3 mirror what those 3 are doing. So in other words, on the whistle, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players are going to go at the same time. The ones in the outside lines, farthest closest to the boards, skate down to the far blue line, skate to the crease, and then skate backwards to where they started. Basically end with a ring. X2, the ones in the middle, are going to skate forward, and there'll be 2 pylons, and they will do 3 figure 8s around the pylons, and then skate backwards also with a ring. The players closest to the net are going to skate forward to the far blue line, do happy feet or exaggerated crossovers to the boards and back, pick up the ring, and skate backwards. The goaltenders can be doing mirror drills up the center and back. Okay? So, let's see what that one looks like in a film clip. So, you can see we've got, you know, here is that in terms of aerobically, we've got half the players go at any given time. Half the players are watching, the other half of the players are being active. So we've enhanced or we've fulfilled our aerobic workload ratio of 1-to-1. We're working on basic skills and basic techniques in here, and we're doing something that basically relative to this group in terms of we've combined it with the ring as well as doing the skating skills. These will usually link together in a group of flow drills, and flow drills will create that good aerobic training of being active, moving at usually half to 3/4 speed for lengths of 20 to 30 minutes. Okay. Oh, that was an aerobic type drill that you would do early in the year. Now I'm going to show you a clip of what we call a small area combat game. Now this one is intended to have maximum exertion for 20 to 30 seconds. The structure of this drill is that it's a one-on-one. As soon as the ring comes out of the circle or goes in the net, the coach will put another ring back into the circle. So it creates continuous activity for that period. So in other words, people don't chase the ring out of the zone. So we basically create that intense activity for 30 or 40 second intervals, which is more conducive with anaerobic training. From a practice planning point of view, this is a great drill because what it does, it really equalizes the difference in skate strengths of the players because it creates checking interaction in a confined space that allows all the players to keep interacting with each other. So if you have skaters at different levels, these sorts of small area combat drills create interaction. They also really create or stimulate that desire, that nose for the ring in terms of fighting for the ring in small spaces. It's also a very cool down drill in your practice. You can use this, I call this gladiator, you use the drill for 2 teams at the end of a practice as a cool down. Instead of just having the one net at the circle, bring both nets into the circle at the center. Team A versus Team B, it's a 2-on-2, same format, and the coach just keeps popping rings into the circle every time one either goes in the net or comes out of the circle. And you leave the players in for about a 30-second rep, and then the next group goes in. So it can be used as a great cool-down drill as well as an anaerobic training. How about ring handling? Let's look at ring handling. A drill that I like to use early in the year, get lots of touches on the ring, is the star drill. Star drill is a simple drill in terms of you pass over the pattern. So 1 passes to 2, 2 passes to 3, 3 passes to 4, 4 passes to 5, and 5 passes to 1. As you pass, you follow your pass. What that happens, by having the 5 lines continually passing, you create the star pattern, hence the name the star drill. So this is, and the same thing, it's a confinement drill. It creates lots of touches. Let's see what that looks like. We find to make it more complex and challenge older players by putting 2 or 3 or even more rings into the star pattern as we go. It creates an element of intensity and also of busyness. We will mix the drill up with hard laps and then come back and repeat the drill again. It's a great warm-up for your practice because it creates lots of touches, lots of activity, making decisions, moving your feet, moving the ring, touching the ring. Now let's look at the progression of a skill through the season, and the one I picked is man-on in terms of man-on coverage. We're going to start early in the season where we're going to spend more time in terms of developing the man-on skill in the development or acquisition stage, and then proceed through to sort of maintenance and refinement. So to start off with, we would do a little half ice man-on drill, like this, and we'll put a defender here and 2 forwards, and the forwards will skate a pattern. Actually, often we'll put a defender in each dot. As the skaters skate around, this defender now picks them up and plays the man-on in the zone. One of the forwards will go out, pick up the ring at center ice, and it'll become a 2-on-2 back to net. To make this happen and get the players to focus on their man-on coverage, we'll take the sticks away from the defenders. Let's see what this looks like on the ice. So here's the defenders without the sticks, getting to feel what man-on look feels like in terms of how close they have to stay. We create this little 2-on-2 opportunity where the players really focus on their man-on both sides positioning. I'll usually leave the defenders in for have 2 groups, and they stay in for 4 to 6 reps each, so they really understand it. It creates a little confusion, which is similar to the game, but it makes the defenders focus on their body position versus on chasing the ring with their stick. You can see that the time you spent prior to introducing this on agility skating, on pivots, turns, accelerating, is really worth the time spent, because without those skating skills, these players will not be able to perform good man-on. Okay, now as we move into the middle of how are we going to make this sort of more interactive, more decision making into it? Well, we're going to change this up, and this is another able to do when you have two teams sharing the ice. So, for example, the schematic here shows this is a 4-on-2 going one way, and then a 4-on-2 going the other way. So to start the drill, we basically divided the teams. We've got the red defense, the red forwards, the blue forwards, the blue defense. To start the drill, the first two blue defense will come up here and mark these forwards. The red defense break out, pass to their forwards. It's a 4-on-2 going this way. As soon as the ring crosses this blue line, these defenses carried up will go and mark onto these forwards, and then the next set of blue defensemen will come and go back the other way. So it's a continuous flow drill, but now what we're doing, we're reinforcing the concept of man-on coverage. We also can work on the concept of forwards sealing and getting away from their mark, but we've now created a level of decision into it. So let's see what that looks like. So here we've got the 2-on-2. The defense can support the ring to the far blue line. As soon as they create that stop, the defense comes back and they pick up the mark that's going back the other way. So in other words, we go through the ice. We created a lot of decisions also to make team passes, but we're also reinforcing man-on concepts more realistically relative to how the game is played. Like I said, it's a great skill for two teams that are sharing the ice together, because to keep the lines full, having 18 to 20 skaters makes it work really well. This format can also be used in terms of creating a 3-on-2 opportunity, with just having an extra forward going into the play. Okay, and then we graduate in terms of man-on relative to the end of the year. Well, we can just do straight 5-on-5, man-on, in a scrimmage situation, which mimics the game. So here we're just doing 5-on-5, man-on relative to a breakout. This would be more of a refinement aspect, something we'd be doing the last third of our season, sort of emphasizing this. Okay. Okay, just to sort of sum up, early versus late in the season. Early in the season, we want to focus on skills. We want to focus on volume. We want to focus on aerobic. We want to focus on repetition in terms of repeating the skills, the skating skills, the ring handling skills over and over again. We introduce tactics only as needed by the team. A little bit of a breakout, some basic things that get the game started in terms of a center free pass, a basic breakout. But as the skills develop, then we start to emphasize these things here. And of course, always creating that positive atmosphere. Late in the season, we know skills become tactics. Volume is replaced by bursts of maximum intensity. Aerobic is replaced by anaerobic. Repetition is replaced by decisions. Tactics only as needed are replaced by tactics that are executed, and as always, positive environment. Okay, so that's kind of the end of my formal presentation, and I'm ready to open up the floor to questions. You still there, Natalie?